Hello, 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 and welcome to the Friday Night Chats brought to you by the Connecticut Crossroads Project. The Crossroads Project is a 501c3 not for profit that builds community through casual conversation. If you would like to panel discussion, you can reach out. Our emails are beneath us. Alex has one too, beneath him. Can you point beneath you, Alex, and show everyone your email address? Um,
Okay.
um, and you can all www.ctcrossroadsproject.com. Over to you, Mr. Alex.
Thank you. I'm Alex, co-president Connecticut Crossroads. I'm excited to be here, excited to have this chat tonight. I'm having a Goya white wine, so if you're in the mood for that, I definitely recommend it. It's one of the better white wines I've had. I know I've said one of the better many times on these Friday night chats, but this is definitely one of my favorite wines I've had. I'd say probably in the past, year or so. So, if that's a recommendation, it is. It's a definite recommendation. I just want to also stress to please, if you do have any memories, pandemic preservation memories specifically, to please send them to us. We want them. We enjoy listening to them, and we want to preserve. We want them. We enjoy listening to them, and we want to preserve everyone's memories. So please send them to us. Chris, what are you having tonight?
Yeah, so I'm drinking rosé all day, my friend. Um,
Oh,
I'm drinking this F. Stephen Millier. I don't know. I'm not good with language. Um, and yeah, I mean, I dig some rosé. It's the millennial in me, I guess.
it's a rosé, man. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah. So to be completely above board with everyone who's watching this, Alex and I have recorded this about 30 times because of various computer issues, which I think is a great segue into just an overall discussion about what's going on right now, what we're doing moving forward, and things like that. So obviously, we've been having some technical issues, lack of technical knowledge, which is probably an easy assumption to make. But because of just aging computers, we're a small not-for-profit with incredibly limited means. We use personal stuff, and it takes a lot of computer power to put one of these things together with all the different streams. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, Alex and I can't be with each other right now.
Yeah,
So, which
which
would
would actually probably make it easier, right?
right, yeah,
Much
a lot
easier.
easier. But that's just how it is. So, moving forward, what we're going to do
Much
a lot
easier.
easier. But that's just how it is. So, moving forward, what we're going to do is we hope to have some live chats in the future. Those are not out of the question because we prefer to do those. We like having you guys in the chat. It makes things more interesting, and it's really what this is about. Out. Um, but we're also we're just going to do this sort of these pre-recorded conversations with each other for a little while and put them up. So at least we can keep talking with you. You can give us feedback. You can leave us questions. We'll go forward to do that. So yeah, what do you think, Alex?
Excellent, man. I agree. We have some technology issues. Not ours necessarily. It's the computer we use, the technology we use, and unfortunately, we have to kind of go to this pre-recorded method. But I think it'll still be good, and I still think we'll have some really good conversations between ourselves. Obviously, because we won't have people in there live chatting, which we definitely prefer. I know I do for sure, and I know actually I can speak for you too. I know you do a thing which we definitely prefer. I know I do for sure, and I know actually I can speak for you too. I know you do as well. I love the engagement, and you can keep that engagement coming with these pre-recorded conversations. You can definitely like Chris said, chat us put up questions that you want answered. Tell us what you think on the conversation. You can ask questions about the conversation. You can pose anything you want in there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, so not to be redundant, I guess, but I mean, like Mike Wynn said when we had him on, you know, so many of these are social media, right? Like social media is not just all this other stuff, so you can still be social with us, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Alex, what have you been up to lately?
I went down to Virginia to see my newborn niece. That was awesome, exciting. Completely any rest area, do any of that sort of stuff. So it was a complete drive-through almost. Stayed at my brother's house. Literally stayed there for 7 days. So it was like I was at home, just at another home, really. And it was awesome seeing her, engaging with her. Brought my dog as well, so he had a fun time as well. Because every time she'd cry and wake up, he would think, I don't know if it was his puppy maybe or something happened. He'd go over to her and be like, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?" And that was it was really really cute time, and I enjoyed it. And I just got back this past Sunday, so got to the work grind on Monday. I just got back this past Sunday, so got to the work grind on Monday, which work is work. Can't complain.
Work is work is work.
Yeah, how about yourself? I haven't talked to you actually in a couple days actually, so I'd actually be interested to know what you've been up to.
Just work. I mean, we can still have people on site,
Gotcha.
but programming is a big thing now, and we can't do that. So, trying to figure out how to best serve everyone.
Are you guys open?
Yeah, we've been open for 3 or 4 weeks. We just reopened to kids in the library because they really had a great sense of energy. So I think it's a good thing. But yeah, and I've been building a boat, so that's super fun.
Ooh, what kind of a boat?
It will be a sailboat.
I'm not gonna let you. Ooh, what kind of a boat?
It will be a sailboat.
I'm not gonna let you. Good, awesome.
Yeah,
I hope I get to sail it one day.
Well, yeah.
One day soon.
So I think we're going to have to build you one because both of us can't be in the boat at the same time.
Gotcha.
At the same time.
Gotcha.
It's
that's fine.
The according to the statistics and the buoyancy of it, it's good. It drops like 6 inches for every, I can't remember what it is, but in the end, about 10 inches would be above the water for myself. Both got in there. I don't think
it wouldn't sail anywhere.
Well, it wouldn't sail. It would sail to the bottom of the body of water that we were on.
Well, then I'll have to start building my own. Don't worry, I'm on it.
So yeah,
I'm on it.
I mean, I think that's definitely an option. We should talk about this. We could start a little fleet.
A fleet of boats in any body of water we go to. The Connecticut Crossroads Fleet.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should definitely get some logos on our sails. We'll do
Absolutely.
that. We'll make this happen.
Yeah.
That's definitely an expense. We shouldn't buy a new computer. We should just, invest in sales for advertising.
Yes, if we sail around all the bodies of water in Connecticut, we'll get there,
So what this will end up being is we'll actually just be like a sail made out of like a poly tarp with "Your Memories Matter" spray painted on it.
Exactly.
Just an update on the pandemic preservation stuff, everyone. We don't have any new memories, but I did have an opportunity to have an actual Connecticut Crossroads conversation with everyone. Thanks to Melanie Martin, who made the connection for us. I had a great conversation with Everett and Elaine Fogarty, or as many people know Everett as Pinky. They both have pretty much lived in New Milford their entire lives. Pinky has lived in New Milford his entire life. Elaine has moved here when she was like 7. So it was a great conversation to be had. So that will be up on the archive fairly soon. So you can look forward to that. Also, I wanted to remind everyone, if you have nominations for the Judy Burrows Award, please put those in. I'll be sharing a link on Facebook fairly soon, just to remind everyone. And please get your pandemic preservation memories to us, even though maybe things are normalizing, although I don't know what that means. Memories to us, even though maybe things are normalizing, although I don't know what that means. We're still looking forward to hearing from you, and we hope that all of you will share those. And Alex, I actually thought, I don't know if you're okay with this, but I thought I would share another short memory with everyone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So if let me just do this. Let me get this set up. So to set this up, this is actually and his experience with the pandemic, and this is what I think is great. So I keep sharing these kids' memories because they're sort of out of the box, and I think their perspective is so unique. And not to sound super cliche, but they are the future. So yeah, let's play this. Okay, Eli Fisher, what is it like being home with mommy and daddy?
Happy.
It's been happy that you've gotten to be with mommy and daddy more?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you feel not happy about?
I don't. I want to think one.
Have you been happy about getting candy for potty training? Yeah. What's it been like not seeing Nana and Gigi though?
Sad.
Sad? How do you feel about that?
Sad.
Do you remember why we can't see Nana and Gigi for a little bit?
No.
No.
Why?
Remember what's been going on? Why we can't go to the park and we can't go to Target? Why?
'Cause of sickness.
Yeah. And is that fun?
So what have you been doing with mommy and daddy while you've been home with them? What have you been doing?
But there's some candy in there.
You don't need candy right now.
But there's some candy in there.
You can have candy when we're done.
Hey.
What?
Playing.
You've been playing and playing?
Uh-huh.
Have mommy and daddy been a little busy though?
Uh-huh.
What have we been doing?
Work.
How does that make you feel?
Sad.
Why does it make you feel sad?
Because you're not playing with me.
Me and daddy.
Grandma?
What do you do with grandma?
Play.
Is that really all you want to do is play?
You're not gonna have one?
Well, have we been doing some art projects?
Yeah.
And have we been sending those art projects to people?
Yeah.
Who did we send art projects to?
Who did we send art projects to?
Our friends.
Your friends, like who? Who'd you send them to? What friends?
It has some more.
Who did you send them to?
My friend. It has some more.
Who are your friends?
Mia, Michael, and James.
Do you miss seeing them?
Can I please have?
We're going to stop recording, okay? We're going to stop talking. You did a good job. Thank you for talking to me.
What do you think we should do when all of the sickness goes away? What's the first thing that we should do when we can go places?
I'll go to everything.
Go where?
Doing Gigi's and Crystals.
You want to go to Nana and Gigi's and Crystals? Is there anywhere else you want to go?
Crystals?
Anywhere else?
Liza.
And crystals.
Mhm.
Is there anywhere else you want to go?
Crystals.
Anywhere else?
Liza.
Do you want to see people?
Uh-huh.
Are there any places you want to go other than people's houses? Houses?
Mhm.
Where?
The playground. In the park.
How has it made you feel that we can't go to the park?
Sad. And can I have a treat now?
Yes.
Mute yourself. So obviously we were bribing him with some sort of I think we were bribing him with Swedish fish, but yeah, that was Eli, age 3, roughly active is now. It's interesting to have that experience with someone as young as him. And obviously he was distracted, and obviously we were bribing him. But I think is that what's really great is that we're able to preserve this this experience for him. I mean, it's horrifying. Like, I don't want to minimize that, but I'm happy that at least there's that piece of it. So welcome back, Alex.
Hey.
Hey. So Alex, I thought we could chat about disappearing communities.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just I think the notion. What do we mean when we say disappearing communities?
Do we mean that communities disappear? They're not there anymore? Do we mean more? I don't know. I tend to think disappearing communities to myself. It means that of a community that once was there for people, and it's no longer relevant anymore. That's how I view a disappearing community. How about yourself?
Interesting. I think
they're similar.
Interesting. I think
they're similar.
Yeah, no, I think that the whole concept of relevance is sort of interesting. I was sort of thinking of it within the context of, there are a couple, I guess, examples that would better illustrate there are a couple, I guess, examples that would better illustrate like what I'm thinking. So, you have locally, you have places like Southville or Jerusalem, which are both currently underwater because of lakes that were created for hydroelectric needs or whatever. They're physically gone. But then I also I'm thinking, as I was sitting at home thinking about it, I was thinking of someplace like Lanesville in New Milford, which is still, I guess, physically there. But is there any sense of connect about what Lanesville is? I don't know. I guess you could say that sort of same thing about East Litchfield too, right?
Yeah. I just posed questions because that's what I like to do. I like to pose these things as opposed to answer them. The answers, but East Litchfield's one of them. I mean, there's different communities across the state. I'm sure that Lanesville was one of them. That do they still hold that same type of community that they once were? Are they still that type of community today? And then there's the other side of that, whereas there was a community there, and now it no longer exists, right? I think those are two different kind of types of communities, and I think they're both warranted, and definitely things. If you and I think they're both warranted, and definitely things. If you'd like, to discuss during this time, for sure.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think. I guess the best place to start is I think we've sort of identified like geographic communities, right?
Mhm.
So we have
Mhm.
these villages and boroughs. I think there's also something to be said for maybe like more traditional communities, things that are more nebulous, more like
Mhm.
we could talk about, say, the Polish community in New Milford that once was thriving and is now um, integrated into a larger America or New Milford community. Um,
Mhm.
so like community. Um,
Mhm.
so like I think there's something to be said for that. So like there are those two ends of community, right? The physical one that we generally
Mhm.
talk about because it's an easy way to frame the Connecticut Crossroads Project, and then there's also sort of those more thoughts and feelings, and then there's also sort of those more thoughts and feelings sort of communities that are harder to distinguish but exist very very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, just for my neck of the woods where I am now, I mean, I know I've talked the Bantam connection, the Bantam community. There's the Bantam community, which is just Bantam. There's the Bantam Litchfield community, which is Litchfield and Bantam. And then there's like now this whole, I feel this new kind of community broadening where it's, you know, of where we should all be one big integrated community as opposed to this different locales or different boroughs, if you will, where we should all be represented within under one kind of umbrella as opposed to like these different sectional umbrellas of Bantam's one set, was Northfield, those type of things.
I
Yeah,
think
go ahead.
let's not touch on Bantam yet because I think there's something really interesting there that I
Yeah.
want to talk about closer to the end. Um, let's talk about
Okay, that's fine. Yeah,
let's
that's fine.
let's talk about what it means um, when a community disappears for, we'll say, the people who live there. So like when a physical
Hmm.
location disappears, like it's underwater or whatever, and what that means long term for the communities that surround it, as in like the legends and the stories that we tell each other, um, and the stories that we tell each other. Um, so
Like the
like
Candlewood Lake legend
right, right. I
or
mean,
the story.
I think there's something really
Yeah.
interesting there. Like so like we talk about Southville in Bridgewater, right? And what's really
Hmm.
interesting about that is that you hear frequently. And what's really
Hmm.
interesting about that is that you hear frequently from folks that Southville was this thriving hub. I wish I had some articles kicking around, and unfortunately, I think I may have left them over on another table. Um, but it's like thriving hub sent to its watery grave, like stuff like that, like um
Hmm.
and like then when you do the actual research, there was a village. I don't want to like undermine that. There was a village with a store and the symbols that connect people,
Hmm.
and people. Thriving hub is a little bit of like hyperbole. um
Hmm.
and so I think these legends that people tell themselves after are sort of interesting, and I
Hmm.
think I guess my question that maybe is something we could dig into is why do we ourselves these legends? I think there's sort of that with Candlewood Lake too, right? Like people talk about
Hmm.
Jerusalem as this like thriving town, and it, don't get me wrong, like
Hmm.
people identified as being from Jerusalem, but it wasn't a town. It was like an
Hmm.
incorporated village. So like I think maybe I think maybe I don't know. Do you want to start there? Is that a good place to start?
Yeah. Because I mean, I have a good little story. I don't know. It shouldn't be too long, but yeah. When I was doing my master's, I lived around on and around Candlewood Lake. I talked to like our neighbors on the lake and just people who have lived there for 50, 60 years. And I always just remember this story of how Candlewood Lake was built quote unquote, and how cars were just sitting in their driveway, and then all of a sudden water just came in and it decimated a whole town. As I am sitting there, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I never knew that. Oh my god! And then when you begin to do the research, you're like, whoa, that's not exactly what happened, right? And it's just word of mouth. The more you hear it, you're like, wow, I can't believe that this is what they let happen. That a lake was just built on top of people's houses. Cars, roads were gone. The whole village was gone. But in actuality, that's not necessarily what happened. So it's interesting that people still to this day still have this same story of how Candlewood Lake was built. It was just nothing. It was a town, and then all of a sudden water was just came from nowhere and just thrown in and buried cars. And there's cars, thousands of liters deep. Just cars are at the bottom of the lake, and you'll find them. And they're archaic cars from the early 1800s or late 1800s, early 1900s.
The lake was formed in like
but again,
1920,
that's what I remember
whatever.
From the stories I heard. And exactly, so you can see it's not like and again, water didn't come down from the heavens, poured in and destroyed a whole town, right? It was a formulated plan where I don't think it was as severe as they say, but again, I don't want to minimize anything because I wasn't there, obviously, but it's fascinating to me to listen to the stories though from people who have lived on Candlewood Lake, from the 50s, the house I was living in, the guy I rented from, he was there in the late 30s, the 40s till when I was renting it from him, and that's the story he told us when we moved in. I was like, that's crazy. Like, and then when you go on and you do the research, you kind of find out like, okay, there's more behind. There's more behind the story. That you open up the doors and then there's all little tidbits that they maybe left out, right?
So I
it's
think
interesting about Candlewood Lake for sure.
I think what's sort of interesting, and just for some historical context, so Candlewood Lake is actually one of a series. So Candlewood Lake is actually one of a series of lakes that are interconnected, and were created by Connecticut latent power to generate electricity. So you have Lake Zoar, Lake Lillonona, and Lake Candlewood. With Candlewood, I believe, being the first when Zoar happened, but Lillonona happened in 1955. Candlewood happened in the 1920s. So these were like preconceived things, right? There were I don't want to talk specifically about Candlewood because I don't know as much about it, but I can tell you when it comes to Lake 1955 that while the lake was actually filled unintentionally because of the flood of 55, there were certainly no houses left there. They were all torn down, left there. They were all torn down prior to the lake being put in. There definitely are roads that lead into the lake still. But I think maybe some of the hyperbole that's there makes it sexy. I think there's definitely that. But I'm wondering,
sure.
Like, why do you think people do that? Why do you think we weave these legends around these disappeared places?
I mean, for me personally, I kind of more hot to be there. I mean, I know when I heard, like I said, when I moved in, this story, I was like, wow, this is pretty like this is awesome, fascinating. I was like, wow, I can't believe this happened. And then my brain started to turn, like, wow, how deep is this lake? How far does it go down? Wanting to dive down, if you will. And I think that's part of the stories we tell ourselves and part of the stories we pass down. To use Candlewood Lake again, for like the disappearing communities to kind of keep that memory alive and kind of keep it when it was maybe not as quote unquote sexy. That's kind of, I mean, in my mind, that's kind of a more fascinating story of Candlewood Lake than like if it was just, it was a planned lake back in, whatever, 1925. It was a planned lake. They, just put, water came, flood water, and there was no house. They, just put, water came, flood water, and there was no houses there, no cars, no nothing. It was just a lake that was planned, for Connecticut Light and Power. That's kind of not as, an extraordinary story as, there was a lot of houses still there. There's cars. People had no idea, and then all of a sudden there's a lake there. The next idea, and then all of a sudden there's a lake there the next day. Oh my God! Wow, right? That sounds much more amazing to a person than it was a planned lake for more power.
Do you think
it's
that
kind of? Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I'm wondering if you think it speaks to maybe remember. And it's all about America's obsession with conspiracies and fringe thought, which has been around since the revolution. And I'm wondering if you think maybe there's some connection to our strange obsession to distrusting the government. I don't know. I'm not saying that I feel that way.
That's where I was going to go. I was going to say, our distrust of government and saying this is a planned government policy as opposed to something that just happened miraculously, right? And I think it kind of something that just happened miraculously, right? And I think it kind of is more intriguing that it just happened than the government planned this lake for more power to be generated for Connecticut for the local towns. It sounds better than what it really was, right? And I think that's always I think that's part of the case with a lot of those type of legends that come of cities and towns that are no longer existing.
Yeah, and I think what's sort of interesting too is that if we have to admit that we personally let communities die, it's we talk about Lanesville, which is, and I use that because I live in New Milford and it's an obvious thing, but it's, I think it's harder for us to admit, for people who lived there maybe, to admit that they are less engaged.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of share your sentiment with that because I think people want to not come to terms with the fact that they let their community that was disappear, whether it was tales. They don't want to come to terms with the fact that this community is now gone, right? And
right.
I think that's where history comes into play, but I think that's where preservation projects come into play to kind of keep those communities still relevant today, so we know that they did exist. And still relevant today, so we know that they did exist and they were prevalent whenever it was, 1920s, 1950s, 2010, whatever it was, and I think I think that's why these legends still kind of are there, and I think that's why these legends still kind of are there, and I still think that's why people talk about it today. I mean, I had conversations with people just, I think I want 3 or 4 weeks ago about Kennewood Lake, and it was someone. Well, actually, you don't know. I'm sorry. It was, I know someone, but they were telling me about the Kennewood. So you don't know. I'm sorry. It was, I know someone, but they were telling me about the Kennewood Lake story, and it was the same story I had heard. And this was 3 or 4 weeks ago, so it was the same story I had heard when I was on Kennewood Lake, and I was like, well, actually, if you dig deeper, that's not actually what happened, but it's an interesting story, right? And that's kind of what grips people, and that's what they want to hear, and it's kind of what grips people, and that's what they want to hear, and they then in turn kind of relay that same story to other people for generations, honestly. Because I mean, Kennewood Lake, 1920s, I think it was 1925, 26, but whatever, this story is still playing out 25, 26, but whatever, this story is still playing out today, and it's 2020, 100 years later almost, and we're still talking about Kennewood Lake being decimated by water and a town being buried, when that in fact that's not actually what happened, right? So I mean, almost 100 years later.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think I think we we sensationalize things to make it sexy. We do it to deny to ourselves that maybe we let go of these places, and also it's more fun. Hear that?
I guess I have a.
Good.
Sorry, it cut out. No, I was just gonna say. I had a question for actually. Why do you think that communities do disappear though, outside of, people maybe letting them disappear? But if we're gonna go, government route, is it just because of geography, or is it, I don't know, landfill mass, whatever it is? I mean, I'm just curious on your thoughts too.
So, again, like, I'm not super well spoken on the history of Campbell Lake. I can speak much better on the history of Lake Lolanona, but
Lake Lolanona, go for it.
Yeah,
Go for it.
yeah,
You can do that. That's fine.
Well, I mean, I think right there that it's the hyperbole of the notion of Southville that makes us ask that question. There was really nothing there.
Mhm.
There were maybe, 3 or 4 houses left. Really nothing there.
Mhm.
There were maybe, 3 or 4 houses left. But even so, I think maybe it does beg that question of,
Mhm.
like, why would someone give up their home? Why would someone give up their farm?
Mhm.
I think in the case of Lake Lolanona, I think that, okay, let's back up a little bit. I think as in Bridgewater as a
Mhm.
whole, there was population decline that happened as industrialization shifted. It's shifted its needs. So, moving away from water power, moving closer to coal, there were no railroads in Bridgewater. So, have, like a little bit of industry that's now completely outpaced by more modern things. And that's why you see, like, the hat factory leave Bridgewater. That's why, like, there were some small, like, subsistence type things in Southville, like, leather. There was some, like, outwork for the hat factories and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
you don't have people working together, I guess. So you lose that sense of community because people aren't working together.
Mhm.
You then see, like, the decline of sales and shops there, which again is another thing that affects community because you don't have stores. Which I believe that the store sold before the village ultimately met its demise. And I think, like, there are letters from Southville that we have at the library that talk about like how lonely it is there, how quiet it is there. And I think it's like this old timer, this woman who's sitting there writing to her family in, like, metropolitan Northville, saying that, like, it's quiet and lonely here. So, I think maybe people just sort of give up on their place when they feel like it's not a place anymore. And what makes a community? I mean, literally, a community is outside of, like, we sort of, communities are, much more metaphysical as opposed to physical, and it takes belief from people, a connection between people. And if you don't have that connection, if you don't have people, well, you don't got a community. So I think, I think, it's sad to give up, but if there's nobody else there, if maybe if you've seen, like, it's quote unquote glory days, or you've been told, and maybe that's an interesting question there, you've been told of its glory days, and you believe that they're no longer its glory days, and you believe that they're no longer around, then you move on.
Yeah, that's good point. Yeah, exactly. I think you're to you again. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah. If there's no more glory days for the community, I think that's what happens with, to a lot of the communities that have disappeared, for sure. I think, the days that were no longer exist. So it's almost, what's the point of staying here if there's just me here, or me and my wife, or whatever, I think you're completely correct. Yeah.
And I think what's sort of interesting too, Alex, is that I hear from a lot of folks, they talk about how in like more suburban communities, how like you lose your sense of connection to community when you don't have children. And so I think the sort of the aren't working together. They don't have the connections anymore. So the only thing that binds them are their children in school. So like, I hear people talking about, the agricultural community that was in New Milford that was very strong. And because everybody, like, they would barter, they would help each other, they knew what was going on. And because everybody, like, they would barter, they would help each other, they knew what was going on. So there was that connection. So when people work in town, when you have like interests or like industries, I guess, you build greater sense of community. So when people work in town, when you have like interests or like industries, I guess, you build greater sense of community, maybe, of the broader town. Like, I mean, obviously there are pockets of community, whether it's through organizations or whatever, but
no, I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said. I mean, it makes sense, Chris, for sure. I mean, especially in the Lake Willenona sense. It's definitely, there was probably a community that was there and it no longer exists. So, it's like, what's the point of being there anymore, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you just missed Alexa turned my lights off. So the viewers got a good, awesome. A nice little spook show right there.
Don't you just love when Alexa just does the things? She's like, it seems like I should just turn these lights off. Or I should just order this for you now.
I think what it
Alexa.
is she's actually
order this for you now.
I think what it
Alexa.
is she's actually she's like, the humans are talking about community. We have to stop them.
Or she's like, I want to be a part of this community, so let me turn the lights off.
So yeah, I think we've actually talked about some really interesting things. There's so much we could dig into here, and like I was thinking about as you were talking about how like there's also talking about disappearing communities, and this is sort of Connecticut adjacent. What about the communities in like the Western Reserve that at the time identified as Yankee communities? I wanted to talk to you. Like, so I had mentioned Bantam. And I think what's sort of interesting about that is something that you had brought up, which was the inspiration for this show, was the idea of change and changing communities. What's interesting about Bantam is it means different things for different people, depending on the time. I don't know. I don't know how to. I don't live in town, so I don't really want to. I don't want to butcher this, but I just think, I don't know. Can you elaborate on that, maybe?
Who hops on, who's a person from Bantam who's lived here for longer than I have. I don't want to mitigate anything, and I also don't want to offend anyone. But just from me being here for the 3 years, I noticed myself as like a new Bantamite, Bantam transplant. I just noticed from people who have lived here for 10 years, 20 years, the feeling that they are disregarded, but they're a town of themselves, but yet they're part of Litchfield. So what I mean is, we pay our taxes to Litchfield. We're part of Litchfield. Everything goes through Litchfield. Pay our taxes to Litchfield. We're part of Litchfield. Everything goes through Litchfield, the big town of Litchfield. But Bantam has no authority. We don't get any say in anything. Now, again, me being a new transplant, I necessarily haven't felt that much of that, but I will say, being on different boards, and talking to different people, I can definitely see how they feel that way, because if you're having a selectman meeting and you're bringing up problems, like the sidewalk, say, that connects Litchfield and Bantam, and it stops, literally right where Litchfield ends, and then the sidewalk where Bantam ends, and there's nothing to connect it. You can feel how you'd feel kind of offended that you don't want to connect with what is technically part of Litchfield, right? And that's just one technically part of Litchfield, right? And that's just one scenario I bring up, for Bantam, for people who live in Bantam. Also, we have a post office here. We used to have a school here. Actually, the old where the post office is now is kind of where the old school was, and they're always talking about different ways that where the old school was to be something, but it's like they're never taking into account what the people from Bantam who have lived here for 50, 60 years want, and I almost feel as though we're kind of forgetting what Bantam was. Again, after I moved here, I did some research on what Bantam was. They're kind of forgetting with the regeneration of Bantam, with stores coming in, restaurants coming in. It's starting to revitalize to what Bantam was, could, and should be, as opposed to like a forgotten thought of Litchfield being the hub of everything. If that makes sense. If I was rambling too much, I apologize. I can kind of stiffen it up a bit, but that's kind of it's almost like Bantam's forgotten. It's almost like it's becoming a forgotten community. It's becoming a community that's abandoned and will be forgotten in the near future, I feel.
So I think that what's interesting about this is I feel like your statements are sort of like this.
Sure. Yeah.
And I guess the two-part question. One, if communities don't change, can they exist? And two, how does it minimize the perception of community of folks who have lived, like the difference? Does the difference in perception of community minimize those who have been there a long time? Does it make it like if the community changes, like what does that mean for them?
So I'll kind of answer the last question for if the community members that were there without taking into their thoughts into account. In Bantam's case specifically, I feel like what has been done, downtown, in a downtown Bantam area, it's kind of a revenue stream. It's given us new opportunities for people who do live in Bantam, but also for people who come from outside Bantam who want to visit Bantam and, the old green and the new green in Litchfield. I'm struggling with your first question, though. I don't know, honestly.
I have lots of opinions.
I would love to know, because I don't want to just sit here in a thought bubble. But yeah, go ahead, and then go ahead.
I think that it's communities are a narrative, and so if they don't change, that narrative ends. And I don't want to minimize people feeling like they get left behind, because obviously we try to preserve history, which is often a changing narrative, right? Changing narrative, right? But
absolutely.
I think if maybe I think it's important. I think change can be and is important, and I think it's hard, and I don't who don't like where their communities are going, because obviously they're invested. If they're upset about something, it means they're invested, and they don't like where it's at. But I also I think about Litchfield County. Let's just talk about Litchfield County in broad strokes. I know people get upset about people having weekend homes here or whatever. But let's be real. If people didn't have weekend homes here, our economy here would be nothing. And that's not even to add the fact that so many of those people add rich and wonderful things to the fabric of our place.
And don't they bring their own type of community to build upon the two in some instances as well.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, I'm just looking at it from Litchfield's perspective for sure. They bring a unique experience and kind of new ideas to the throw, and you build a new-ish community within the old one. So you can still within a new community, you can have a double community, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I
If
think
that makes
that's like the thing. Like, we don't want to get too much stuck on like
Yeah.
geographic locations
Of
because
course,
communities are much more nebulous than that. But
Oh,
yeah,
of course, yeah.
absolutely. And like, I know I really want to emphasize the fact I get
Mhm.
where people are coming from, but I also think that like change is hard, but change can also be good. So
Mhm.
I don't know. That's maybe
No,
again. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think again, I wasn't here. Was at its apex before. I'm at here now, where it's kind of at its going towards an apex now, and I think what has been done in Bantam is definitely a good thing. I wish to see more things done again where there were, like I said, the old school building there. I hope something good. Bantam is definitely a good thing. I wish to see more things done again where there were, like I said, the old school building there. I hope something good comes from that. I hope we do. I hope Litchfield and Bantam can work together to make something good out of that. Whether it's a little Bantam U. I hope Litchfield and Bantam can work together to make something good out of that. Whether it's a little Bantam museum there, another type of school building there, something that goes there besides just sitting there as just a building. I would like to preserve what Bantam had there. If it's throwing it out there, I don't think that will ever happen. But maybe preserving what Bantam was through that building. Keeping that building there in some facet to be something. Anything, a farmer's market, an open market, a solarium, something like that. I mean, it could be awesome to have, just to bring people here, but also to show what Bantam was, 50, 60 years ago.
Right, and I think like, I guess, not to be cynical, but this is what it came down to during our last conversation. It's all about money,
Yeah.
right? I mean, people.
Of course, yeah.
In the end, people had sort of this.
Of course, yeah.
In the end, people had sort of this like community, whether it's Bantam, whether it's say Winstead, whether it's any of these sort of like little agglomerated villages. In this case, in the modern sense, they were connected because of industry. Bantam had, I think, something to do with airplanes or something. Like later, I know earlier they had like spoons or nails or something.
Yeah, yeah. You're correct.
So like people were connected because of work, right? And when that industry leaves, that community is to stay. And I think that's what happens in a lot of these communities. Like, so whether it's these we can talk about like the suburbs in the Midwest that used to be connected by agriculture, and then all these McMansions pop up in them, and just they become a bedroom community instead.
Absolutely.
So I think in the end, not to be cynical, but like where people used to be connected because of religion, it's now because of work.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I will say, when I was visiting my niece, my new niece now, where my brother lives, I don't want to date myself, but I think it's about 30 years ago or so. It wasn't the industrial kind of complex it was. Now there's it's all townhouses, it's all businesses, grocery stores, all businesses, grocery stores, tech buildings, different type of tech industries coming in, and now it's basically popping up everywhere. Like you said, McMansions, but a lot of the townhouse kind of industrial complexes all over, where it used to be essentially on 3 acres, 4 acres, and that's no more. You really have to go outside of where he lives to actually see like a house on an acre or 2 acre plot, which I think it was about 30 years ago or so, you'd see those pretty abundant, and now it's essentially just live there and and to work. But again, it comes back to economy and work and what's available. And that community left where it was, the 1 acre, 2 acre houses community. And now it's more of townhouse and McMansion type style housing.
Right.
A new community has been built. The old community is not necessarily forgotten. Community has been built. The old community is not necessarily forgotten. They have walking trails designated for those, but again, I think it still loses that. Obviously, it loses the picturesque landscape that was once there.
Yeah, I think.
Again, I know that's Connecticut adjacent, but I know that's Connecticut adjacent, but it's kind of apropos for what we're discussing, I think.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to sound like too relegated to the notion of like being connected by only work, but I think what's interesting is then now of what they were, and I don't mean that in a really negative way. I just mean it's things again change, and so now they're looking for other ways to connect themselves, and I think New England in particular really struggles with that because of how sort of our culture. And I think that's a bigger discussion, but I mean we're hitting at like the hour mark, and maybe we should stop here and
hey, look at that.
We can
Sure.
we can continue this conversation maybe some other time because I think there's a lot here to unpack.
Absolutely. We can definitely continue conversation wise.
So I don't know. I mean, I really like the Alex and I had talked about this whole idea of symbols. The things that bind our community. So I think maybe we'll be talking about that next week. So you heard it here first.
Yeah.
I don't know where else you'd hear
Symbology.
it, to be honest. You'd hear it, to be honest.
You may hear the word symbols, you may hear things about symbols, but you'll only hear about symbols here during this conversation.
So, are you referring to symbols or symbols? Like the instrument?
Both. No.
Like the instrument?
Both. No, I think we're going to bring up both type of symbols. To be honest, I was talking about symbols, the instrument. What were you talking about? Were you talking about symbols?
We could talk about like one of your fellow alums from Canterbury.
Yes, we can do that. That would be very interesting to do. So next week, Joseph Campbell time.
And we'll have some Campbell soup.
We can eat Campbell soup and talk about Joseph Campbell.
Okay, friends. So we're going to stop there. I want to encourage all of you to please also like and follow us on YouTube. Again, the Connecticut Crossroads Project is a 501c3 not-for-profit that preserves community through casual conversation. And I really want to thank all of you for joining us. Alex, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to say
for joining us. Alex, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to say, please keep sending us your conversations for the pandemic that's still